now turning out sets faster than the cabinet department can build cases. The people who work in the plants, ranging from trained engineers who have come home from the cities to young apprentices, have all got a spiritual investment that can't be matched with money. This, on a small scale, is the way the Alliance for Progress is supposed to work. Projects like this are springing up all over Latin America, and observers are coming to Serrat to profit by Asimov's example. And knowledge is the real currency here. By the time this corn processing plant is completed, all of the original 5 making food, radios, shoes, ceramics, and wood products will be operating. Local people are already raising money for 2 more. It looks like a small-scale industrial revolution, but there is one thing. This is a backward area, and the question remains how far such industrial development can go if it is not supported by a matching agricultural revolution. Roberto Campos is Brazil's new Minister of Planning. Will the government expropriate land, taking it away from large holders?
Oh yes, that would be necessary, certainly, in some of the areas in which there is pressure on land, and in which there is a great degree of, a high degree of social bitterness, so that expropriation and redistribution will become necessary. Fortunately, in the Brazilian case, those are rather limited areas, 4 or 5 areas throughout the country. For the majority of the country, what one needs is a good agrarian policy and a good tax system that would encourage the productive use of land and encourage voluntary redistribution of land to escape the tax burden. Expropriation will be a limited remedy for certain areas, but it will certainly be necessary, and it will certainly be done. We are thinking really of 3 different instruments of agrarian reform adapted to regional conditions. First, a progressive land taxation. This would be applied universally throughout Brazil. Secondly, expropriation in certain critical areas. And thirdly, colonization to occupy vast tracts of land which are still unoccupied.
Brazil contains ample space for colonization. There are areas like the Amazon that are next to being deserted. But the government will have to be very firm against powerful resistance. They will also have to induce people to settle places where few have chosen to go. The Amazon Valley contains about 45% of the total land area of Brazil, and less than 5% of the people live there. Within certain limits, life can be easy. There is swampy jungle, but also lots of high ground. The economy is stagnant, but the individual settler can always find a market for his jute, or palm oils, or Brazil nuts, or wood. It's never difficult to induce anything to grow, so one need not be hungry. On the other hand, the range of diet is limited, so one is seldom properly nourished. The death toll of many tropical ailments has been reduced, but others remain. Disease is mysterious, the thing to be tolerated. Life is cheap. There is every possibility that this area, along with many others in Brazil, might be more heavily settled. But there is great inertia, an attitude of listless submission, of taking out what the land grants without putting anything in. Tools are primitive, methods are archaic. Partly, the difficulty may come from things being so ready to hand. Basically, all you have to do is cut into a rubber tree, the rubber drips out, and you can catch it and sell it. Riches waiting to be picked up. So at the end of the 19th century, there was a rush to the Amazon rubber forests like the Alaska gold rush. But then the bubble burst, and the flow of rubber from the Amazon dropped to a trickle. There was a blight that hit the trees. Someone planted rubber trees in the Far East. Prices dropped. The prospectors left. The trickle went on, and there it stays today, not even supplying a fraction of Brazil's needs. The story of Amazonian rubber is a classic because it matches the pattern of so many other Brazilian booms. The sugar boom, the cocoa boom, the diamond boom, the gold boom, the coffee boom. Each of them brought something to the country that stayed, but that something never seemed to be quite enough, perhaps because the boom itself was founded on the notion of taking what was there without giving much back. Each of the boom and bust products has had to be rediscovered and started up again on a different basis. There is symbolic irony in the fact that the most promising research on how to lick the rubber tree blight is being done by a private American company in the Brazilian state of Bahia, a couple of thousand miles from the Amazonian rubber forests. In the Amazon, the trickle goes on, and the land waits for development. And life itself goes on. The waterfront at Manaus contains a whole trading city floating on logs. This is as things should be, for the waterways are the main arteries of the region. Remote settlers bring in their bananas or jute or alligator skins or whatever and trade it for canned goods, salt, kerosene, other things they need. Usually they are in debt to the trader. The trader gives them credit, and he himself gets credit from larger exporting firms. This is all right. Brazil floats on debts. Vultures vie with the hogs at picking over the garbage. The vulture as a street cleaner is a respected bird in Brazil. The life of the floating city at Manaus has that same air of permanent impermanence that often seems to pervade the country at large. Things were better once. Perhaps they will improve again. In the meantime, one finds a way. One gets on. One is a stoic. In the upper city, the part that is based on dry land, there is a stronger echo of past glories, of the faded graces belonging to another time, another people. And towering above it all, a monument to the tradition of boom and bust, an opera house that might match any in Europe, where whole companies were brought in from Milan to Manaus to sing Verdi before the rubber barons, who sent their dress shirts to Portugal to be laundered. In the plaza before the opera house, a new generation plays soccer. Their vibrant energy does not quite silence melancholy echoes of the past, past triumphs, past mistakes. What can the future do for them? What can they do for the future? Reynold E. Carlson, an economist and a representative of the Ford Foundation in Brazil, links education and taxation.
The two things that really helped to get the U.S. off the ground were general education at the primary school level, common education for the rank and for every man, Tom, Dick, and Harry, and as early as 1913, the income tax. These two end property taxes. So let's say education and taxation. Taxation to pare down these individuals who have too much, shall we say, and are using it not in the public, to the government's interest, and also the education. Both of these prevail in Brazil. We have a very high income tax, if you read the law, equal almost to the states, but nobody pays income tax. Brazil is, the government does not have the necessary tax revenue, so it must resort to inflation. So one important reform, apart from this land business, is in taxation. Taxation of land is practically nil. Therefore, anybody can sit on a piece of land forever and doesn't have to worry about paying taxes. Now, in the States, property taxes are very high, and you cannot sit on a piece of land very long but without losing a considerable amount of money.
And you actually think that taxation in itself would work obliquely to increase individual opportunity?
In several ways. In the land alone, if there were a genuine or real property tax, much of this agrarian reform problem would just disappear, because you cannot sit on a huge estate if the property taxes are high. The taxes compel, with generation after generation, a breaking up of the land, setting off a piece here to pay the death taxes, setting off a little piece here to pay the property taxes. This has been the history of the States, not so here. Second item, let me just mention it, is education. Education in Brazil is like an hourglass, you know, that sort of thing. The bottom piece of the hourglass is the primary education, which is free. The top piece of the hourglass is university education, which is free. But the stem is secondary education, which is not free. You have to pay tuition. 3/4 of the kids in Brazil have to pay tuition to go to high school. Now, with the income level that Brazil has, most of the kids never have a chance to go to high school. Therefore, their opportunities are cut off at this stem in our hourglass. There are a few public high schools, government high schools, but nothing to meet the needs of the country.
These children, vaulting into the future, are lucky. They are city dwellers, members of the expanding middle class. Their parents can pay for their education. They can pass through the stem of the hourglass and get a university degree, a job of the sort they want, for they are members of an elite. About 50% of the Brazilian people are illiterate. Just about that same percentage of children today are not attending school. The population is now over 70 million. It is estimated that in another generation this figure will double. Consider a nation of 70 million people which has been able to teach only half its citizens how to read and write, has a birth rate that will put its population up to 140 million in another 20